This podcast is for singers who have music in their soul and want to be in the spotlight. We are INVICTA Vox Radio.
Hey everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of INVICTA Vox Radio. As always, we are your hosts, Mike and
Angie Lee.
And today we are going to be talking about something that really slows down people's progress and kind of shuts you down in every facet of what you're trying to do, whether it's music or anything else. And this is the concept of fatigue. And this is something that I personally have become so aware of recently and how much it actually affects my mood. And there's several components of this, but the first place I want to start is actually like actual physical fatigue. Mm-hmm. So one thing I've noticed is that as I get tired, right, as I get physically run down and tired, there's no creativity there. Mm-mm. There's no desire to work hard, to do anything ambitious. I just shut down. And right now I feel like there's this kind of two sides of the coin, right? Like where some people look at sleep, for example, this is just a good like starting point for it. But a lot of people look at sleep, and some people look at the medical stuff and say, okay, people should be getting 8 hours of sleep, right? There's so much debate on how much sleep you should be getting. Mm-hmm. But then there's also this like big thing that's come out recently about hustle and grind, and you should be working 20 hours a day. If you're going to make it, you got to work 20 hours a day. But there's no way that that's sustainable.
And you can push for like a week or two doing that, and then you're going to burn out and crash.
Right. And even if you do sustain it, over time, you're going to lose that creativity. You're going to lose your drive. You're not going to want to do the things that actually bring success. And I personally found this out, because I've worked on projects where I haven't had as much help as I've wanted to in the construction engineering world. Mm-hmm. And for a while, I was going on 3 to 5 hours of sleep for like 6 to 8 months. And I was having quadruple shots of espresso every day and having heart palpitations and things like that. But
you were drinking like rock stars and all kinds of stuff in the afternoon.
Yeah, and I would just show up as a zombie, right? Mm-hmm. But in that, all I was doing was paperwork. So it's not like, or checking on things out on the construction side or things like that. So there wasn't this need to actually be artistic and create art. But in our business, if we're trying to visualize things, or in your music, if you're actually trying to write something, mm-hmm. you can't go that long or be in hustle mode and expect yourself to actually be creative in a long-term basis. Like, I know for you, one thing that you're always talking about is how critical it is for you to get the sleep that you really need.
It's the most important thing physically for me, because you talk about taking care of your body and your mind and how important that is for your creativity. It's massive. And for me, there's the sleep, there's nutrition, there's working out, taking care of your body. I think those are like kind of the big three, right? For me, if sleep is out, everything is out, no matter what. If I'm exhausted, I'm not going to take care of my body in other ways. I'm not going to take care of my mind. That sleep is so critical for our body to restore and heal every night, and for our mind to reset and to heal and to process things from the day. And if you're not getting that sleep, creativity is going to just go down. And I want to kind of reiterate this idea of hustle that you brought up, because do you have to hustle as an artist? Absolutely, because you're an entrepreneur. You're creating your own business, and the business is you. Your business is your music. And so hustling is definitely part of that picture, but let's not get that confused with this new term of hustle that has been coming out, like you're talking about, of hustle and not get any sleep at night. And, if you're a true entrepreneur, you're going to work 20 hours a day, all this stuff. That's not true. That's not how it works. You have to take care of you, because as an entrepreneur in music, you have to keep your creativity very high for your art, but also to see the process, to see opportunities, to work on your social media, to work on making connections and networking with people and playing shows. Like, you have to have your body finely tuned for that. And So that doesn't diminish the idea of the grind, because it's a grind. You have to work and you have to put every hour that you possibly can into it. And you have to have a singular focus and a singular obsession to be able to make it happen, but not at the expense of your health. And I think that's the defining line to prevent fatigue, because if you go too long and you stay in that permanent mode of fatigue, everything falls off. Everything deteriorates. And so, yeah, maybe you're like getting an album done and you're going to grind it out in the studio for a week and you are going to just drop these huge long days. But then you're going to take a little break and recover. As far as, okay, I'm going to catch back up on my sleep. I'm going to get back into my routine. And so that routine is so, so important. Getting enough sleep, getting good nutrition. Don't put a lot of crap in your body that shouldn't be there. Make sure that you're getting your body working out and moving every single day. And as an artist, if you're on stage, especially if you're in rowdy music that's jumping around and doing all that kind of stuff, you better be working out every day so that you can sustain and have stamina on stage and not completely destroy yourself every night.
Yeah, you got to get that cardio up.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you got to go take a spin class. But yeah, so it's this combination, this beautiful combination of obsession, focus, grind to get where you want to go without sacrificing your health. And I'm talking mental health, spiritual health, physical health.
Yeah, because for me, I've actually noticed it a lot too, is when I get into this state of fatigue, right? I'm gassed out. Everything starts to look bleak. I really start to get into these depressive states. And if you're somebody who's, this person who's trying to build a career as an artist or really develop into anything, being in that depressed state is one of the worst places you can be in, because all of a sudden you have this super bleak outlook on everything, and it gets to the point where it's like, there's no way I can do this. I'll never amount to this.
I should play video games
tonight.
Tonight.
And so it's already hard enough, and there's an urge to want to quit continually, right? Like, oh, am I good enough? Is this going to work out?
Yeah.
That already enters in the mind a lot. And so when you're burned out, when you're tired, when you're hungry, when you're in all these fatigued states, then you start to hit this point of, well, yeah, I'm never going to make it. I might as well quit.
Yeah, I mean, you're already having so much self-judgment when you're in this industry anyway, because you're always wondering if you're good enough. You're always wondering if you look the right part. You're always kind of analyzing everything about yourself because you are your business. And so to put the fatigue on top of it, it's just a death sentence. And not only that, if you allow yourself to spiral and get into fatigue mode, it is really hard to get out of. Once you're there, you have to claw your way back out of it. You have to very consciously say, okay, I'm going to shift my sleep this week. Okay, now that my sleep's back in check, now I got to shift my nutrition. Now I got to shift this. And okay, maybe I'm not going to go binge alcohol or caffeine this weekend. Like, you have to be super, super aware of that if this is a game you want to play for the long term. Now, if you're just doing music to party it up and have a few fun years doing it, that's a totally different situation. But you have to remember that as a musician and as a singer and as an artist, your body is your product. Like, this whole thing is what creates the whole thing. And so if you don't take care of that,
if you weren't looking at the video,
your whole body, I'm outlining my body, is what creates the whole thing, right? And if that's not in alignment, then it's just going to crumble beneath you. It's going to burn out, and it's not going to work anymore. And like you said, you might even burn it all to the ground anyway, because if you get stuck in that pit and you're in that fatigue mode, you just give up.
Yeah.
It's really hard to get out of. And so that's not saying that you don't pull a couple 20-hour days here and there. If you have to, you have to. Sometimes we get down to the wire and we have deadlines and we do it.
And there's sometimes where that's actually really fun.
Yeah.
But don't look to think that you can do that on the whole on a
daily
regular basis.
It will catch up with you fast.
Yeah, I just saw a post today, and I thought it was pretty funny because someone was actually really serious, and they posted in a entrepreneurial group, and they're like, "Yeah, is 4 hours of sleep a night enough for an entrepreneur?" And it's like, it's not enough for
any human.
Anybody. I mean, there's some people who can make it work, but that's like very, very, very few and far between.
People on
and
Adderall.
Just assume that you're not one of those people.
Most of the people who are doing that on a continual basis are on drugs.
Yeah. But there's this other part of fatigue, and we've both kind of mentioned it briefly, and I just want to keep going down that road. And this is this concept of burnout. And there's a couple things that contribute to that for me. One, I like to think of it almost like palate fatigue when you're eating a plate of food, right? If you're eating the same thing over and over and over again, it's not that meal isn't good, but you just get sick of it because you need a different flavor to come in to kind of match that up.
Or just to offset it so that you can come back to it and find it delicious again.
Yeah, and we see this with progress and with working on developing as an artist as well.
We're working on projects that take a long time to complete.
Right. Like but let's just say you're working on your voice, right? And you're kind of hammering down on this one aspect. You're trying to really master one component of it. Well, after a while, that's just not going to be fun for you anymore. And then again, you get to this fatigue state and you're like, all right, I just need to take a break from working on my voice. When really that's a horrible way to go because you've taken all that time to build momentum and
you've compounded interest of like doing it daily, and then all of a sudden you just stop doing it because you're sick of it.
And here at the studio, we really push that momentum is a big thing, right? It takes a ton of energy to get from a state where you haven't done anything to where you've built all this momentum. So the last thing you want to do is kill it. And in this state where it's like, okay, I've kind of hit palate fatigue, I'm sick of working on this. Don't just stop working, just shift what you're working on, right? Work on a slightly different aspect instead of working on your voice in that way. Maybe work on writing covers and then still using your voice while you're working on those covers, or just something that still applies, something that keeps you progressing in the same area, but just shifts the focus so you just don't get that palate fatigue or burnout fatigue in that way.
Yeah, and we talk about that too. You see people burn it to the ground all the time. Burnout is you burn it to the ground, like you burn out, and then you decide to just light it all on fire because you're sick of it. And that's the last thing you want to do, because you want to talk about a momentum killer. It's just that. So you find people who fatigue because they've overdone themselves and they burn out that way. Or you find people who they fatigue because they get sick of doing it the same all over and over and over again, and so they burn it down. And those are the two things that you have to be hyper aware of, and balancing your life as much as possible so that you don't have that happen. We want to keep music exciting. We want to keep, you excited about it and obsessed about it and doing it in a very positive, healthy way. And so it's being aware of where you are on that spectrum of, are you on that fatigue side where either you are pushing way too hard and your life is completely spiraling and you're going to crash, so there's the burnout that way, or are you in the mode of, I am so sick of what I'm doing because I'm palate fatigued and I'm going to burn it down.
Right.
And that is such a cool way of looking at it. And if you can be super aware of that and real with yourself, if you're in that mode, where are you on that spectrum? Are you like, everything is perfect and awesome over here? Or are you like, I am completely fatigued, I'm ready to be done? We don't want to be on either of those extremes, because we also want to have that the thing that drives that obsession is the challenge. It's the grind. It's the work. So we still want to have that tension to push us and to drive us. So somewhere in the middle is where we want to be on that spectrum of everything is easy and exciting and it really just fluid and easy, versus this disfluency of fatigue. Right. And again, in the middle is the sweet spot.
Sure.
Because you are in this hyper state of creativity because everything is flowing through you, but you still have that tension to push your obsession. And that's I think like the magic.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the fun part. And again, if you're trying to be a musician, you're going to be playing the same songs
over and over,
right?
Yeah.
Your popular songs. I mean, think about like, I don't know, some of those guys like the Rolling Stones or
yeah,
any band that's been going 30, 40 years, and every time they get up on stage they have to play their hits because that's what people come to.
That's what they go see.
And so you have to come up with unique and creative ways to be able to perform that, to be able to get excited about it each day without
renew it for yourself.
Yeah.
And for your audience.
So it's just kind of the nature of the game, really, not just in music, but in
everything,
anything, especially entrepreneurship. The way that you get good at it is by mastering and doing the same things over and over and over, and really just, I've heard it said this way before, but mastering the mundane. And so you kind of have to build up the endurance for that. But I think a huge part of it is just finding ways to make it more interesting, to make it more fulfilling, and to challenge yourself to do it better, to come up with new creative ideas. And so, yeah, it's just that palate fatigue and just avoiding that. Again.
Well, and I think too, like, obviously we want to avoid fatigue and we want to avoid burnout and burning things down, because, you know, who wants to actually get to that opposite side of the spectrum, like that downfall, that pit? No one wants to actually be there. But the thing that you have to be real with is that you are going to kind of glide along that spectrum. There's going to be times when you get close to that fatigue and burnout, and there's going to be times when you have no responsibility on your plate because you're just ready to be done and you're clear over on the other side. And it's going to you're going to kind of bounce back and forth. But the more you can be aware of that and where you are on that spectrum is going to be super powerful for you, because then you can say, oh, I need to course correct. I'm getting a little bit too fatigued. Oh yeah, I've been staying out way too late these last few, like for the last couple weeks. Or I'm pushing way too many hours in the studio. You can kind of adjust. Oh, I ate like crap for the last 2 weeks. I need to like maybe stop drinking so much caffeine or something. Evaluate what is throwing you out, what's causing the fatigue, and what's causing your creativity to spiral. And actually, that could be a really good indicator for you if you're looking for indicators of fatigue. If all of a sudden, if you're like trying to write a lot of music and all of a sudden you can't write anymore and you've lost your creativity, take a look at that. You're probably crazy out of balance somewhere, okay? And there's no such thing as perfect balance, right? There's no such thing as every area of my life is perfectly balanced. Like that's not possible, because you would never achieve anything if everything's always in perfect balance. But when things swing way too far, that's when we have problems. And so it's always just being kind of aware of where you're at, figure out what your triggers are, what's going to push you into fatigue, when special things that are really important to you are falling out of place. That's when we have to kind of take these evaluations of where we're at and where we can course correct to get back on track and keep our creativity, keep our power, keep our passion, our obsession, and push. Because yeah, that grind is going to be there no matter what, especially if you want to do big things with it. So it's just being super aware of where you're at on that.
Yeah. And with that, I think you pretty much nailed it.
Whoop, whoop.
So it's that time in the episode where we tell you to, if you're on YouTube, hit up the comments. If you're just listening, bust out that notebook, that journal, and your pen.
Write it down. Let's declare.
Let's answer this question. Where are you not having good self-care? Where are you not taking care of yourself? Where are these factors that are applying or creating fatigue in your life, where you can really boost yourself up by getting rid of some of these habits, some of these things that are holding you back? Is it poor nutrition? Is it lack of sleep? Is it that you aren't being creative in getting away from this palate fatigue concept, right? Or
is it that you've overplanned your day way too much and you have no space? Where is that for you? Where are you on that spectrum of nothing matters versus fatigue, right? Like everything is easy versus I'm completely burned out and I'm ready to burn it down. Yeah. So yeah, do you feel like you're in a good space in that? Or do you, like you said, Mike, do you feel like you need to course correct because there's some specific things that are out of place?
And with that, everybody, please, as always, let anybody you know that you feel like would benefit from this, tell them about it. Share it up, like it, subscribe it, do all those fun and fancy things that will just help this podcast grow and help other people find it and get what they can out of it.
Have a wonderful day and peace.